Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. Joining us is Rick Grenell, former Director of Communications and Public Diplomacy for the U.S. Permanent Representative to the United Nations. He advised 4 U.S. ambassadors and was the longest-serving American spokesman at the United Nations, having served the entire 8 years of the Bush administration. In 2004, he became an official member of the U.S. delegation to the Security Council with full voting rights. Welcome to Newsmax TV, Rick.
Thanks, Kathleen. Thanks for having me.
President Obama just marked an anniversary, his first year in office, after getting elected on a platform of change. What kind of grade do you give him so far for his public diplomacy?
For public diplomacy, I'd say that it's an incomplete. He really hasn't reached out that much to the international world. He hasn't been at the UN that often. He's certainly not utilizing the world bodies. He could use NATO a lot more. I'd say it's a solid incomplete.
Let's take a look at several of the bigger foreign policy issues that he has had to deal with in the past year. Unlike his predecessor, he has not passed a single UN Security Council resolution on Iran. Former President Bush passed several and kept pressure on Iran to stop enriching uranium. What are the implications for President Obama of going soft on Iran and practicing diplomacy instead?
It's a great question, and it's one thing that just infuriates me when you think about it. We were on the march with Iran during the Bush administration. We had multiple sanctions resolutions that were really pushing these guys to feel the international pressure. We were holding them accountable to a certain extent. Certainly the sanctions are not implemented by every country. Europe has to do a much better job than what they're currently doing. But at least we were united at the Security Council. China and Russia were not always happy that we were forcing them to vote, but we did force them to vote, and we were united, unanimously having the Security Council put the pressure on Iran. Since Obama's been in office, that pressure's gone. We haven't had a single resolution on Iran in a year, although the Obama administration has put forward deadlines that have come and gone consecutively. And so if you're Iran, you hear deadlines, no consequences, no resolutions. They're going to continue to enrich uranium, and that's not a good thing.
Now, Sarah Palin says that sanctions should have already been put in place. What are your thoughts?
She's right. We should have had a lot better sanctions put in place. There are certain sanctions that every single country around the world is supposed to implement. So, for instance, right now you're not supposed to do business with Iran. You're not supposed to have banking interests in Iran. We do know there are German companies, there are European companies that are doing that anyway. Mm-hmm. So the European countries, China, Russia, others, they're not implementing the sanctions that are currently in place. That's why it's even more important to have another resolution which continues to up the pressure on these guys.
Now, do you believe that either Israel or the United States will attack Iran? And do you feel that Benjamin Netanyahu is handling the situation appropriately?
What a great question. I mean, it's a tough answer to think about. What's the appropriate response for Israel? I certainly don't want to ever be in the position of questioning what the people of Israel or the government of Israel is going to do about a neighbor that hates them. I mean, this is terrorism. What would we do if Canada hated us and Canada was out to get us and they wanted to destroy us? I'm not sure what we would do. If there were bombings going on in Seattle from Canada, what would we do with our border? What would we do with shutting down? I think those are really good questions. I hate to see people who don't live in Israel try to tell the Israelis what to do, so I'm not totally comfortable. However, I feel that we've got to be tough on terrorism.
Let's talk about Afghanistan real quickly. President Obama has pledged 30,000 more troops. You've written that the war there is his to win or lose. How can we achieve a successful Afghan strategy, and what should our priorities be in Pakistan?
I feel pretty strongly, after working on the Afghanistan issue for a decade almost at the UN, I feel really strongly that Afghanistan doesn't have any strategic value for the United States alone. It's really Pashtun on Pashtun violence that's going on there. And strategically, why are we there other than to stop terrorism? I don't think you can talk about Afghanistan without saying Afghanistan, Pakistan. That region is so important because there are so many terrorists hiding in the mountains between the two countries. So I don't ever want to talk about Afghanistan without talking about an Afghanistan-Pakistan strategy. You have to do two. It's like a balloon. If you squeeze one, it's going to come up on the other side. We got to squeeze both, and we got to get those guys in the hills that are causing a lot of problems. I also think Pakistan has a nuclear weapon. So what do we have to do? We have to take them very seriously, and we have to deal differently with Pakistan than we do with Afghanistan. India being a great ally of ours, I think we have some help in that region, and we should utilize India a lot more.
There are many Americans who, after voting for President Obama, are very disappointed because they wanted troops in Iraq to return home quickly. By shifting the focus onto Pakistan and Afghanistan, what do you believe are the implications then for our mission in Iraq?
It's a good question, too. I mean, I feel like with Iraq, the surge obviously worked that Bush put in place. I think Obama, after bashing Iraq during the campaign and trying to pretend like he was going to bring troops home, I mean, he certainly is now playing games by saying, well, I didn't say that I would bring all of the troops home immediately. He kind of played around with his words then. But make no mistake, many people who voted for Obama on the Iraq issue thought that they heard him say, I was going to bring home all of the troops immediately. He's now playing games and not living up to the spirit of what he was saying. So the surge that he's now producing and pushing in Afghanistan, I think, is really an admission that Bush did the right thing in Iraq, that the surge really did work, even though Obama had a very hard time saying that. The two places together, we certainly have to combat terrorism. We have to defeat these guys. And I think that Obama having the surge in Afghanistan is ultimately a good thing.
What do you think about the changes President Obama has made in the U.S. approach to terrorism versus how President Bush handled things?
Well, I think it's scary. I think it's really scary because here's a guy, President Obama, who clearly wants to be the most popular guy in the room. He wants to be the guy that's really well liked, and he wears that. And he doesn't want to make tough decisions that anger people. So how we're dealing with terrorists right now and bringing them into the country and giving them rights, I think Scott Brown, the winner of the Massachusetts Senate race, said it best when he said, I don't want to give them all a bunch of lawyers. I want to give these terrorists a fight. And I think that's how most Americans view this situation, is that we've got people that are trying to kill us. The guy who on Christmas Day tried to blow up an airliner, when he got off the plane, he was read his rights. Someone said to this guy who was a terrorist who just tried to blow up a plane, you have the right to remain silent. I would have said, you don't have the right to remain silent. I want to go over here and I want to knock you around mentally until you start spilling some information, because we needed that guy and we needed to figure out who sent you, who's paying for this, and we need to get to the core of why these terrorists are boarding planes and trying to get at us. I think it's absolutely wrong that we would allow the guy to get off the plane and someone would say to him, you have the right to remain silent.
Let's talk about the situation between Israel and the Palestinians. What progress has President Obama made in leading these two nations toward peace?
Well, certainly there was a lot of talk. What we heard in the campaign is that he was going to bring the two sides together. And quickly we found from his Cairo speech that he goes into Egypt, the president goes into Egypt, and he criticizes the Israelis, and he doesn't challenge the other side while he's in Cairo. I think immediately he lost credibility. I was just in Israel and Palestine within the last 6 weeks, and I can tell you that a lot of people feel that they don't have an honest broker in the United States right now. So I'm not sure that he's going to be able to deliver much. The irony is that Secretary of State Clinton does have credibility on this issue. And I'm just wondering when she's going to stand up and exert her power and pressure on the two sides. She hasn't done it yet. So far, we've given it to George Mitchell and some others, and Obama is trying to pretend that he's got some credibility on this issue. But it's clear, hearing from the Israeli side, that Obama doesn't have the credibility. And also what I'm hearing from the Palestinians and from a lot of the Arabs, that they're greatly disappointed in what Obama has been giving them. So I don't think we're going to see much from Obama on the Israeli-Palestinian issue.
Now, President Obama just marked the 1-year mark. He has 3 more years left with this term. What can we expect from him moving forward as it relates to public diplomacy?
Well, I think this last election in Massachusetts sent a powerful message to Obama and Rahm Emanuel and Robert Gibbs and the whole crowd up there in Washington. I think they're going to have to adjust. They're not just going to have to adjust what they're saying and how they're approaching issues to talk about and package issues. They're really going to have to adjust their policies. President Obama came into office, he had a Democratic House, he had a Democratic Senate, and he had a big old Democratic team at the White House. He could have done anything. They could have called votes at 3 in the morning and passed any piece of legislation. Why anyone was even talking about Republicans standing up or saying no is beyond me. You don't need any Republicans. You just got to please your own party. If he couldn't please his own party and pass all these pieces of legislation that he promised us in the campaign in his first year, I think we're in for a rocky road the next 3 years.
All right, let's move to the Caribbean. Haiti right now on the hearts and minds of people across the globe. Former President Clinton has said basically that in this tragedy lies the potential for a giant triumph, which is the possibility that Haiti could develop as a truly modern state with the help of nations. Given that Haiti is our neighbor, and given that the U.S. leads the world when it comes to humanitarian issues, what should our role be moving forward?
A great question. I mean, what should our role be in Haiti? I think the simple fact is Americans are focused on Haiti now. We haven't been as focused on it in the past. The question really is, how long will Americans stay focused on Haiti? We could do anything we want when we set our minds to it. Americans are fantastic and very successful when we focus on a problem. And we are clearly focused on Haiti right now. So I think the Haitian people are going to benefit from that. The answer is certainly not going to involve the UN. The UN's been there since 1993. They've spent millions of dollars in Haiti. They've been terribly unsuccessful in Haiti. Right now we're just dealing in Haiti on an emergency basis. We're feeding and clothing people on an emergency basis. We're collecting millions of dollars every week and just feeding and clothing these people. We're going to have to quickly switch into development and operational issues in Haiti. I don't think we can rely on the UN. I think America is going to have to step it up. We're going to have to take the hit that we're doing too much in another country. But I think if we want to change that country for the better so that it moves from beyond a crisis emergency situation on a daily basis into a more sustainable and productive member of this region, I think we're going to have to step it up and look for some economic development. It's a long, expensive, messy road, but in the end, I think Americans will want that to happen in Haiti.
All right, Rick Grenell, thank you so much.
Yeah,
we appreciate your insight. And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.
Sarah Palin's new book, Going Rogue in American Life, will be released on November 17th. You can be among the first to get your copy. Check out our incredible free offer for Sarah's new book. Just go to Newsmax.com and click on the top banner for this great offer. Act today.